Y'all don't even know what's going on, so why y'all speaking on y'all don't know? You snitching!
After a viral clip of Kodak Black started circulating, people began questioning his state of mind. The footage spread fast, and the commentary spread even faster. That is when Boosie Badazz stepped in with a post saying Kodak needs help. What could have stayed a quiet concern immediately shifted into something personal. Kodak pushed back with frustration, making it clear that outsiders did not understand what was really going on. He believed people were speaking without context, reacting to a moment without knowing the full picture. Kodak decided to address it in his own way.
I'm a realist, bro. I'm a realist.
He did not release a statement through management. He did not hide behind subtweets. His next move came direct and unfiltered, and it caught a lot of people off guard. It did not just respond to the moment, it escalated it. The clash traces back to February 2026. A video surfaced showing Kodak performing at a show in Texas. In that footage, he appeared disoriented. Security had to hold him upright on stage. Reports claimed he showed up 9 hours late. Within hours, that clip flooded timelines across every platform.
You snitching! You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of little shit like, man, come on, man.
It was not a private embarrassment. It became public evidence. And once it hit the internet, there was no pulling it back. Boosie saw the clip. He went straight into the comments. He wrote that Kodak needed help and that he was saying it from afar. It read like concern, but it also reopened old wounds. Because this was not the first time Boosie had publicly spoken on Kodak in that way. It had happened before, over months, even years.
Stop playing with me on this internet. I swear to God.
Every time Boosie made a comment suggesting Kodak was spiraling or unstable, Kodak responded. The pattern was established long before this specific video. Kodak went on camera and addressed Boosie directly. He did not dance around it. He spoke about the repeated public commentary. From his perspective, Boosie was shaping a narrative that did not match how he saw himself.
Like, all this shit I'm going through right now, like, man, I shouldn't even have no energy for this. Like, I'm going through real gangster shit. Man.
Kodak made it clear he viewed himself as disciplined and aware, not reckless. To him, Boosie's public statements were painting him as a loose cannon, and that portrayal carried consequences. Then Kodak used a word that carries serious weight in the streets. He accused Boosie of snitching. He clarified that he was not accusing him of cooperating with law enforcement. Instead, he was accusing him of putting private matters on display.
I can't be going back and forth on the internet, bro. Like, especially, yeah.
In Kodak's mind, speaking publicly about another man's personal struggles was its own kind of violation. It crossed a boundary. In that environment, labeling someone as a snitch is not casual language. It attacks credibility. It attacks character. It implies betrayal. Kodak argued that discussing another man's habits, his struggles, or his state of mind on the internet was a form of exposure that should not happen. To him, it was the equivalent of telling on someone. He said it plainly. No coded messages, no subtle hints.
You know, I'm trying to get the same thing you got from the same people. And you know that, bro. Come on, type the shit you want.
He looked directly into the camera and told Boosie to fall back. He doubled down. He explained that he does not insert himself into other people's business. He does not go online dissecting what is happening in someone else's household.
I care about you in the street, you rap, you.
From his point of view, the respect he extends is not being returned. He was drawing a line, and that line was about boundaries. Kodak then made it personal. He referenced experiences within his own family, where public talk caused damage. That comparison revealed something deeper.
Kodak Black just got arrested.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was high off something. He fell asleep in his car. When the police pulled up,
He was not treating this as routine rap friction. He was connecting it to real consequences, real history, real pain. In his mind, public commentary was not harmless. It carried risk. To Kodak, Boosie's statements were not supportive. They were public exposure, and where they come from, exposure can be dangerous. It can change how people view you. It can change how people treat you. That is why he framed it as betrayal rather than concern. Boosie, on his end, had already been addressing the situation before Kodak responded.
Try to see, I don't be trying to tell about your business.
He had already been on camera acknowledging that fans were pressing him hard for speaking on different situations, including the Young Thug case, and for responding to Kodak's repeated shots. Boosie Badazz made it clear that Kodak had been coming at his neck, but he insisted he was dealing with much heavier problems at the time. From his perspective, the internet back and forth was small compared to what was hanging over him. Boosie was facing federal pressure. Gun charges were active. Sentencing was approaching. The weight of that reality was real and immediate. He explained that he did not have the mental space to entertain every comment or address every jab.
It's my brother got told on. Homie, I got told on when I was young. Homie, carjacking. What is you?
The stakes around him were not social media stakes. They were federal stakes. That context mattered, because it shaped how he responded, and it shaped how he saw Kodak's energy. Then, Boosie said something that shifted the tone entirely. He stated that he and Kodak were trying to eat off the same plate, from the same people. That was not random phrasing. It suggested shared circles, shared audiences, shared industry access. It implied that whatever friction existed between them, they were still operating within the same ecosystem. In other words, this was not an outsider attack. It was internal. That line carried weight because it showed Boosie did not see Kodak strictly as opposition.
They say that he had a mouthful of cocaine.
Yeah.
If that video comes out, if they had a body cam and you see Kodak,
He saw him as someone who understood the terrain, someone who should have recognized the balance required when two artists overlap in influence and audience. But Kodak was not receptive to that framing. To him, it did not matter whether they were in the same lane.
Black with a mouthful of cocaine, that is going to be the biggest meme of 2024.
What mattered was that Boosie kept saying his name publicly. Kodak reduced it to something simple. He did not view Boosie as someone with authority over his life. He viewed him as a rapper. Nothing more. The tension was not about catalog or accolades. It was not about legacy debates.
He said that he doesn't do cocaine, he does meth and perks. Like, this is somehow better. Like, he said, I ain't no junkie.
It was about boundaries. One man felt publicly scrutinized. The other felt entitled to speak. Neither backed down. February 2026 was not the beginning. It was a flare-up in a longer story. To understand the hostility, the timeline has to rewind to 2023.
Genuine sadness.
I don't laugh because I don't laugh at people's troubles, bro. I mean, I got my own troubles.
That year quietly set the foundation for everything that followed. Before the disses, before the call-outs, before the internet picked sides, there was mutual respect. The dynamic looked like an older figure guiding a younger one. Boosie had spoken positively about Kodak's talent in interviews. He described Kodak as naturally gifted, someone with instinct and creativity that cannot be taught. There was acknowledgement there, public praise. It was not manufactured. Boosie even recounted pulling Kodak aside at one point. He advised him to leave Florida. He described the environment as toxic. He warned him about the cycle of drama that seemed to follow him.
Like I told y'all before, man, even when me and Kodak had, I won't see him get help, bro.
That advice did not come across as hostile. It came across as caution. It was the type of conversation an older artist might have with someone he believes has potential, but is surrounded by instability. It was direct, possibly uncomfortable, but rooted in what appeared to be concern. And Kodak later confirmed that dynamic in his own music. In a bar that would later be flipped into a diss, he admitted that he once looked up to Boosie.
Fiction would clock immediately.
Hey, look, I know that shiny skin that...
What does shiny skin mean? What do you mean?
It's like a drug addict.
That line became ammunition once the relationship deteriorated. But at one time, it was genuine. There was an informal mentorship energy between them. They were not inseparable. They were not publicly attached at the hip. But there was recognition, a sense that one had walked the path before the other. That context makes the fallout more complex. Because when respect turns into resentment, the reaction is rarely surface level. It carries history. That entire dynamic collapsed in the summer of 2023.
I've been around them dudes who...
And the spark behind it was one name that carries more controversy than almost anyone else in modern hip-hop culture, Tekashi 6ix9ine. In July 2023, Kodak Black linked up with 6ix9ine on the track Shakalaka. On paper, it was just another collaboration. In reality, it was a statement.
Hey, I've been getting my fans on my ass. Everybody in my DM talking about, speak on the thugger shit.
Within the culture, 6ix9ine had already solidified his reputation as the most high-profile cooperating witness in recent rap history. He took the stand in federal court and testified against individuals he once publicly aligned himself with. For much of the hip-hop community, that made him untouchable in the worst way. Not controversial, radioactive. The overwhelming sentiment was clear. Any artist who still valued street credibility should not stand anywhere near him. So when Kodak appeared beside him on a record, the reaction was immediate and divided.
When it's time for me to speak on anything, I'm gonna speak on it. Whoever put me on their couch, bro.
Some saw strategy, others saw betrayal. But for Boosie Badazz, there was no gray area. This was not an agree to disagree moment. This was about code. Boosie responded almost instantly. He did not soften his stance. He went direct. He made it clear that no amount of money, no business incentive, no publicity angle could justify collaborating with someone who, in his view, violated the most fundamental street principle. His criticism was not subtle. It was sharp, personal, and rooted in his belief system. Then he escalated further.
I'm an open book. I'm gonna speak on it, I'm gonna tell how I feel.
Boosie openly questioned Kodak's authenticity. He implied that Kodak had not truly lived the life he rapped about. Coming from someone with Boosie's history, that accusation carried weight. He had served real time. He had built his reputation on surviving the system. For him to suggest that Kodak's street narrative lacked substance was not casual commentary. It was a direct challenge to his identity. To Boosie, this was never just about one song. It was about what the song represented. In his mind, the collaboration signaled a willingness to compromise principles for profit. A willingness to overlook culture for currency. That was the deeper accusation beneath the surface. Kodak did not accept that framing. He responded by reposting a video calling Boosie a clown. He dismissed the criticism as the ranting of an older artist trying to maintain relevance by policing the younger generation's moves. That response set the tone for what followed. Respect was no longer the foundation. Defensiveness was. That exchange marked the first real smoke between them, and it established a pattern.
That's Boosie, man. If somebody gotta put me on that couch, better do that.
Boosie positioned himself as the voice of accountability. Kodak challenged whether Boosie had the authority to judge anyone. Every response added tension instead of resolution. The situation intensified quickly. By August 2023, Boosie moved from interviews to music. He released a diss track titled Ungrateful. The record went directly at Kodak. The focus was the 6ix9ine collaboration, but the underlying message was broader. Boosie accused him of damaging his own reputation through reckless decisions and questionable associations. The track did not feel strategic. It felt personal. For Boosie, this was cultural defense. He framed Kodak's move as more than business. He framed it as betrayal of shared roots. Ungrateful was frustration put to a beat. It was the first time either of them used music as a weapon against the other. And that shift mattered. Once diss records enter a situation, pride becomes harder to retreat from. Then, in November 2023, another layer surfaced. The issue shifted from culture to money. Boosie accused Kodak of sampling his music without proper clearance. He claimed there was no permission, no acknowledgement, no respect. Now the tension had a financial component. To Boosie, it was more evidence of disregard. Not only had Kodak crossed a cultural line in his view, but he had also crossed a business one. That compounded the resentment. What started as ideological disagreement had now become personal and monetary. And at that point, it was clear this was no temporary dispute. It was a fracture. From Boosie's perspective, Kodak had already crossed a major line by collaborating with someone widely labeled a snitch. That alone was enough to fracture whatever respect had once existed. But when the sampling accusations surfaced, it changed the temperature completely. Now, it was not just about code. It was about money. While they were publicly beefing, Boosie claimed Kodak was benefiting from his catalog without proper clearance. That shifted the dispute from ideological to financial. Pride was already involved. Now pockets were involved too. And once money enters a personal conflict, resolution becomes far more complicated. Everything that ignited in 2023 carried straight into the following year with no cooling period. There was no reset. In February 2024, Kodak Black released a track titled 11 a.m. in Malibu. Inside, it was a direct shot aimed at Boosie Badazz. The record reopened wounds that had barely started to close. Any illusion that things were fading out disappeared immediately. Boosie responded without hesitation. He defended his stance and returned to the same core arguments he'd been making for months. In his view, Kodak was wasting his own potential. He believed Kodak's decisions were self-inflicted setbacks. The narrative from Boosie's side remained consistent. No enemy could damage Kodak the way Kodak was damaging himself. By March 2024, Boosie was repeating that message across interviews. He framed Kodak's trajectory since the 6ix9ine collaboration as a case study in self-sabotage. According to him, the decline was not caused by external forces. It was caused by internal choices. That framing kept the tension alive because it positioned Boosie as someone diagnosing Kodak publicly, whether Kodak wanted that diagnosis or not. There was a brief moment later in 2024 when it appeared the conflict might de-escalate. Boosie publicly stated he was done with the beef. He said he wished Kodak well. He criticized media platforms for constantly amplifying division between black artists. It sounded like closure. It sounded like an olive branch. For a short time, it looked like maturity might prevail. But that truce lacked stability. It was fragile. And it could not withstand what was already building beneath the surface. Because while the 6ix9ine collaboration sparked the visible fallout, something else had been fueling Boosie's commentary from the beginning. Something deeper, the drug dimension. The drug. If the collaboration damaged the relationship, the substance concerns became the underlying thread running through every exchange that followed. Nearly every time Boosie referenced Kodak's behavior, there was an implication that something was wrong beyond music. It was rarely stated directly in early stages, but the tone shifted. Sometimes Boosie sounded less like an adversary and more like someone who had seen this path before. That nuance matters, because Boosie has his own history. He has navigated legal trouble. He has seen careers collapse under addiction. So when he described Kodak as spiraling, some heard criticism. Others heard warning. That duality defined his side of the conflict. Publicly confrontational. Underneath, possibly concerned. The clearest example of that tension surfaced when Kodak caught another charge, and details of his arrest began circulating. Boosie addressed it during an interview. His delivery blended humor with seriousness. On the surface, there were jokes. Underneath, there was something heavier. The details being reported painted a chaotic picture. And as Boosie described what he had heard, it became clear that this was no longer just about music industry politics. The narrative had shifted again. The focus was no longer simply about collaborations or sampling disputes. It was about behavior, about stability, about whether someone was heading toward a cliff without recognizing it. And the way Boosie spoke on it revealed that complicated mix of frustration, pride, and what some interpreted as genuine concern. That combination is what has kept this conflict from ever fully dying. Because beneath every diss and every accusation, there has been a recurring question about responsibility. And once that question entered the conversation, the beef stopped being simple. Boosie was nearly speechless when the visuals from Kodak's arrest began circulating. He admitted that the situation had all the ingredients for the internet to turn it into spectacle. He could already see how it would be clipped, memed, dissected, and dragged across every platform until there was nothing left but punchlines. At first, he reacted the way many did. There was disbelief. There was that half-laugh people use when something feels too absurd to process in real time. But then his tone shifted. Mid-sentence, he pulled back. The jokes stopped landing. What replaced them did not sound like mockery. It sounded like disappointment, almost sadness. The kind that comes from watching someone unravel publicly. That tension has defined Boosie's position throughout this entire conflict. On one side, he has roasted Kodak Black without hesitation. He has criticized him openly. He has challenged his decisions in interviews and in music. On the other side, he has repeatedly said that beneath the smoke, what he ultimately wants is for Kodak to get himself together. Whether that concern is fully genuine or partly performative has been debated endlessly by fans and commentators. Some believe it is real. Others believe it is strategic. But what is undeniable is that Boosie has not stopped repeating it. He has consistently framed his commentary around the idea that something is wrong beyond the headlines. Then came the moment that escalated the absurdity beyond what anyone anticipated. After the arrest, Kodak went live on Instagram to address the cocaine allegations himself. The expectation was denial, clarification, damage control. Instead, what came out left people more confused than the original report. The internet reacted instantly. Kodak denied the cocaine allegations, but in the same breath casually acknowledged meth and Percocet use. The statement was so disjointed that it overshadowed whatever point he may have been trying to make. What was intended as a defense became, in the eyes of many, confirmation of deeper instability. It was the kind of response that critics had been warning about. It reinforced every narrative Boosie had already pushed regarding judgment and decision-making. And once that clip began circulating, it moved faster than any interview or diss track ever had. Boosie responded again. This time there was a different energy behind his words. Less fire, more fatigue. He sounded like someone watching a slow-motion crash while the driver insists everything is under control. The frustration was still there, but so was something else. A sense that this was no longer entertainment, despite the ongoing disses, despite the social media exchanges and the public shots. Boosie maintained that his stance on Kodak's substance issues was not about attention. He framed it as pattern recognition. That phrase is important. It suggests experience. It suggests familiarity with behavior cycles. It suggests that he believed he was observing repetition, not isolated incidents. That position places Boosie in a complicated space. He can criticize Kodak as an opponent while simultaneously expressing concern for him as a person. In his mind, those two positions do not conflict. He can feel disrespected and still feel worried. He can call out behavior and still believe intervention is necessary. Boosie went further. He explained how he recognized certain signs. He described watching Kodak in interviews and noticing physical cues that, to someone familiar with addiction, are difficult to ignore. Subtle movements, changes in focus, energy shifts. He spoke about them not as speculation but as observation. That is where the conflict becomes layered. Because once addiction enters the conversation, every insult carries additional weight. Every joke feels sharper. Every public comment feels more invasive. And yet, the commentary continues. The push and pull between criticism and concern remains unresolved. And that unresolved tension is what has kept the situation volatile long after the initial collaboration controversy faded. Boosie was not speaking on this like an outsider repeating headlines. He was not listing symptoms like someone who had skimmed an article. He spoke like a man who had seen those signs before. Not once, not twice, many times. He described recognizing the physical markers because he had watched them surface in people around him. And more importantly, he had watched them surface in himself during his own worst chapters. He referenced seeing Kodak Black on platforms like Drink Champs and No Jumper. He spoke about the way Kodak carried himself physically in those interviews. The pauses, the energy shifts, the way his speech landed. To Boosie, those were not random quirks. They were indicators. They confirmed what his instincts had already been telling him. Then he said something that changed the entire tone of the interview. Boosie Badazz admitted he had once been in that same dark place. He openly stated that he used to be on PCP, angel dust. He did not soften it. He did not disguise it. And he said that when he watched Kodak's behavior and listened to his speech patterns, he recognized the same traits he had once displayed himself. That admission reframed everything. This was no longer just a rapper criticizing another rapper. It became a man looking at someone younger and seeing pieces of his own past staring back at him. That does not automatically make the delivery perfect. It does not erase the public nature of the criticism, but it adds context. For Boosie, the drug element of this conflict was never just diss track material. It was the emotional core of his frustration. In his view, Kodak possessed undeniable talent, raw, natural ability. And what frustrated him most was watching that talent get overshadowed by substances and instability. He described it as seeing someone gifted drift towards something destructive and being unable to intervene beyond words. Whether Kodak interpreted any of that as concern is another question entirely. Because while that undercurrent was building, another issue emerged that shifted the battlefield. If substance concerns formed the emotional layer beneath this conflict, The Young Thug situation introduced a different type of tension altogether. In September 2025, rumors intensified surrounding Young Thug and his RICO case. Allegations circulated online suggesting he had cooperated with authorities. Those claims were not confirmed, but they were loud enough to divide the culture sharply. Some believed them, others rejected them outright. The topic itself carried heavy implications. In hip-hop, accusations of cooperating with law enforcement are not minor controversies. They redefine reputations. Into that environment stepped Kodak. He publicly questioned why Boosie, a man known for speaking openly on issues of street code and authenticity, had remained silent about the allegations. The timing was deliberate. Kodak was not casually wondering out loud. He was pressing on Boosie's brand identity. For years, Boosie had positioned himself as someone who says what others will not. Someone unfiltered. Someone who does not hesitate. So when one of the biggest snitching rumors in recent memory surfaced and Boosie did not address it, Kodak saw an opening. The implication was direct. If Boosie speaks loudly when criticizing him, why stay quiet now? Either the silence meant fear, or it meant selectivity. That was the angle Kodak leaned into. He suggested that perhaps Boosie's keeping it real persona had limits. Loud when convenient, silent when risky. That accusation carried more weight than a typical diss. It attacked consistency. It attacked credibility. And in this space, credibility is currency. Boosie was not going to let that challenge linger unanswered. Boosie responded with a lengthy post on X. It was not a quick dismissal.